Hello guys, welcome to my channel, Arvan Tell Story. Now I'm gonna tell about United States. The United States of America or USA or USA, commonly known as the United States, US or America, is a transcontinental country primarily located in North America. It consists of 50 states, a federal district, 5 major unincorporated territories, 9 minor outlying islands, and 326 Indian reservations with limited sovereignty. It is the third largest country by both land and total area. The United States shares land border with Canada to the north and with Mexico to the south, as well as maritime borders with the Bahamas, Cuba, and Russia, among others. It has population of over 331 million and is the third most populous country in the world. The national capital is Washington, D.C., and the most populous city and the financial center is New York City. The United States is a melting pot of culture and ethnicities, and its population has been profoundly shaped by centuries of immigration. It has a highly diverse climate and geography and is officially recognized as one of the 17 ecologically megadiverse countries. Paleo-Aboriginals migrated from Siberia to the North American mainland at least 12,000 years ago, and advanced cultures began to appear later on. These advanced cultures had almost completely declined by the time European colonists arrived during the 16th century. The United States emerged from the 13 British colonies established along the East Coast when disputes with the British Crown over taxation and political representation led to the American Revolution, which established the nation's independence. In the late 18th century, the U.S. began expanding across North America, gradually obtaining new territories, sometimes through war, frequently displacing Native Americans, and admitting new states. By 1848, the United States spanned the continent from east to west. The controversy surrounding the continued practice of slavery in the southern states in light of the ongoing abolitionist movement culminated in their secession and unification under the Confederate States of America, which fought the United States, the Union during the American Civil War 1861 until 1865. The Union's victory preserved the United States and slavery was abolished with the ratification of the 13th Amendment by 19,000. The nation had become the world's largest economy with the Spanish-American War and World War I, establishing the country as a world power. After a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, the nation warred against the Axis powers during World War II. The aftermath of the conflict left the United States and the Soviet Union as the world's two superpowers. During the Cold War, both countries engaged in a struggle for ideological dominance, but avoided direct military conflict. They also competed in the space race, which culminated in the 1969 American spaceflight that first landed humans on the moon. Simultaneously, the civil rights movement led to legislation outlawing racial discrimination against African Americans. The Soviet Union's dissolution in 1991 ended the Cold War, leaving the United States as the world's sole superpower. The September 11 attacks in 2001 resulted in the United States launching the War on Terror, which included the war in Afghanistan and the Iraq War. Next, The United States is a federal republic with three separate branches of government, including a bicameral legislature. It is a liberal democracy and market economy. It ranks high in international measures of human rights, quality of life, income and wealth, economic competitiveness, and education. And it has low levels of perceived corruption. It has high levels of incarceration and inequality, retains capital punishment, and lacks universal health care. The United States is a highly developed country and its economic accountant for approximately a quarter of global GDP and is the world's largest by GDP at market exchange rates. By value, the United States is the world's largest importer and second largest exporter. Although it accounts for just over 4.2% of the world's total population, the US holds over 30% of the total wealth in the world, the largest share held by any country. The United States is a founding member of the United Nations, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, Organization of American States, NATO, and a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. The country makes up more than a third of global military spending and is the foremost military power in the world and a leading political, cultural, and scientific force. History. So, it is generally accepted that the first inhabitants of North America migrated from Siberia by way of the Bering Land Bridge and arrived at least 12,000 years ago. However, some evidence suggests an even earlier date of arrival. The Colby's culture, which appeared around 11,000 BC, is believed to represent the first wave of human settlement of the Americas. This was likely the first of three major waves of migration into North America. Later waves brought the ancestors of present-day Athabascans, Aleuts, and Eskimos. Claims of very early colonization of coastal New England by the Norse are disputed and controversial. The first documented arrival of Europeans in the continental United States is that of Spanish conquistadors such as Juan Ponce de Leon, who made his first expedition to Florida in 1513. Even early Christopher Columbus had landed in Puerto Rico on his 1493 voyage, and San Juan was settled by the Spanish a decade later. The Spanish set up the first settlement in Florida and New Mexico, such as St. Augustine, often considered the nation's oldest city, and Santa Fe. The French established their own settlement along the Mississippi River, notably New Orleans. The American Revolutionary War, fought by the 13 colonized against the British Empire, was the first successful war of independence by a non-European entity against a European power in modern history. Americans has developed an ideology of republicanism, asserting that government rested on the will of the people as expressed in their local legislators. They demanded their rights as Englishmen and no taxation without representation. The British insisted on the administering the empire through parliament, and the conflict escalated into war. Irreconcilable sectional conflict regarding the enslavement of Africans and African Americans ultimately led to the American Civil War. With the 1860 election of Republican Abraham Lincoln convention in 13 slave states declared secession and formed the Confederate States of America, the South or the Confederacy, while the federal government or the Union maintains that section was illegal. In order to bring about this secession, military action was initiated by the secessionists and the Union responded in kind. The ensuing war would become the deadliest military conflict in American history, resulting in the death of approximately 620,000 soldiers as well as upward of 50,000 civilians. In the North, urbanization and unprecedented influx of immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe supplied a surplus of labor for the country's industrialization and transport its culture. National infrastructure, including telegraph and transcontinental railroads, and spurs economic growth and greater settlement and development of the American Old West. The later invention of electric light and the telephone would also affect communication and urban life. And the United States remains neutral from the outbreak of World War I in 1914 until 1917, when it joined the war as an associated power alongside the allies of World War I, helping to turn the tide against the Central Powers. In 1919, President Woodrow Wilson took a leading diplomatic role at the Paris Peace Conference and advocated strongly for the U.S. to join the League of Nations. However, the Senate refused to approve this and did not ratify the Treaty of Versailles that established the League of Nations. After World War II, the United States financed and implemented the Marshall Plan to help rebuild Western Europe. Disbursements paid between 1948 and 1952 would total 13 billion. It's almost 115 billion in 2021 or now. Also at this time, geopolitical tensions between the United States and Soviet Union led to the Cold War, driven by an ideological divide between capitalism and communism. They dominated the military affairs of Europe with the US and its NATO allies on one side, and the Soviet Union and its Warsaw Pact allies on the other. The US often opposed the world movement that it viewed as Soviet sponsors, sometimes pursuing direct action for regime change against left-wing governments. American troops fought the Communist forces in the Korean War of 1950 until 1953, and the US became increasingly involved in the Vietnam War, introducing combat force in 1965. Their competition to achieve superior space flight capability led to the space race, which culminated in the US becoming the first nation to land people on the moon in 1969. While both countries engaged in proxy war and developed powerful nuclear weapons, they avoided direct military conflicts. On September 11, 2001, Al-Qaeda terrorist hijackers flew a passenger plane into the World Trade Center in New York City and the Pentagon near Washington, D.C., killing nearly 3,000 people. Wow, it's a lot of people. In response, President George launched the War on Terror, which included a nearly 20-year war in Afghanistan from 20 and 21, and 2003 until 2011 Iraq War. Government policy designed to promote affordable housing, widespread failures in corporate and regulatory governance, governance and historically low interest rates set by the Federal Reserve led to housing bubble in 2006. This culminated in the financial crisis of 2007 until 2008 and the Great Recession, the nation's largest economic contraction since the Great Depression. Economy. According to the International Monetary Fund, the U.S. gross domestic product (GDP) of $22.7 trillion constitute 24% of the gross world product at market exchange rate and over 60% of the gross world product at purchasing power parity. That from 1983 to 2008, U.S. real compounded annual GDP growth was 3.3% compared to 2.3% weighted average for the rest of the G7. The country ranks 5th in the world in nominal GDP per capita and 7th in GDP per capita at PPP. The country has been the world's largest economy since at least 19 a year. The United States 19,000. The United States is most technological, powerful, and innovative nation, especially in artificial intelligence, computers, pharmaceutical and medical, aerospace, and military equipment. The nation's economy is fueled by abundant natural resources, well-developed infrastructure, and high productivity. It has the second highest total estimated value of natural resources, valued at $44.698 trillion in 2019. Although sources differ on these estimates, Americans have the highest average household and employee income among all OECD member states. In 2013, they had the 6th highest median household income, down from 4th highest in 2010. The US dollar is the currency most used in international transactions and is the world's foremost reserve currency. Backed by its economy, its military, the petrodollar system, and its links euro-dollar and loss in US Treasuries market. Several countries use it as their official currency, and in others, it is the de facto currency. The New York Stock Exchange and Nasdaq are the world's largest stock exchanges by market capitalization and trade volume. Wow. Good. The largest U.S. trading partners are China, the European Union, Canada, Mexico, India, Japan, South Korea, the United Kingdom, and Taiwan. The U.S. is the world's largest importer and the second largest exporter. It has free trade agreements with several countries, including the USMCA. The US ranks second in the Global Competitiveness Report in 2019 after Singapore. Of the world's 500 largest companies, 121 are headquartered in the US, while its economy has reached a post-industrial level of development. The United States remains an industrial power. It has a smaller welfare state and distributes less income through government action than most other high-income countries. United States ranks the 41st highest in income inequality among 156 countries in 2017, and the highest compared to the rest of the developed world. On February 2, 2022, the United States had a national debt of $30 trillion. Let's talk about education. American public education is operated by state and local government and regulated by the United States Department of Education through restrictions on federal grants. In most states, children are required to attend school from the age of 5 or 6, beginning with kindergarten or first grade until they turn 18, generally bringing them through 12th grade, the end of high school. Some states allow allows students to leave school at 16 or 17. Of Americans 25 and older, 84.6% graduated from high school, 52.6% attended some college, 27.2% earned a bachelor degree, and 9.6% earned graduate degrees. The basic literacy rate is approximately 99%. The United States has many private and public institutions of higher education. The majority of the world's top public and private universities, as listed by various ranking organizations, are in the United States. There are also local community colleges with generally more open admission policies, shorter academic programs, and lower tuition. The US spends more on education per student than any nation in the world, spending an average of $12,794 per year, that's dollar, on public elementary and secondary school students in the 2016 until 2017 school year. As for public expenditure on higher education, the US spends more per student than the OECD affiliates, and more than all nations in combined public and private spending. Despite some student loan forgiveness programs in place, student loan debt has increased by 102% in the last decade and exceeded $1.7 trillion as of 2022. Wow. That's it about the United States or America. Thank you for watching my video. See you soon in another video. Bye.